often been criticised that farming in New Zealand, to achieve both profitability and, of course, environmental benefits, you have to be in the black to be green, meaning effectively that the cost of implementing environmental management on our farms here in New Zealand means you have to be running a profitable enterprise to do so. And it is a challenge when we are faced with commodity markets. I have been critical in the past that our financial structure in our industry is counterintuitive. However, I have a press release come across my desk this last week that shows that the banking sector is moving in a fantastic direction with the New Zealand first ethical dairy investor Southern Pastures entering into a 3-year $50 million sustainability-linked farm loan with BNZ. And the syndicate has over 20 farms across Waikato and Canterbury, and they are, of course, the recent owners of Lewis Road Creamery. So they will receive financial incentives for meeting new water quality and biodiversity targets and achieving further reductions in on-farm carbon emissions. It all sounds fantastic, and to be able to be rolled out and incentivised with less interest. Joining us now from BNZ is the head of Natural Capital, Dana Muir. Dana, thank you so much for coming on the program, and your background leading you into the particular role that you're in now in Natural Capital. You have come all the way from a dairy farm upbringing in Taranaki. Can you explain how exciting it is to get to this point and over, say, even like the last decade, the conversations that have had to occur to get to the point of having a sustainability-linked loan?
Yeah, definitely. It is very exciting. This has probably been a work in progress for us and with Southern Pastures for probably the last year. So Southern Pastures have been very patient with us while we worked through how this could look for the market. It's certainly very exciting for what we think this could mean for the future of the sector. We've been watching really closely as a bank what's been happening in an international space around sustainable finance. And certainly I've always seen that there's a massive opportunity for us to start to recognise some of the hard work that our farmers are putting in across their properties to make them, be thought leaders in the environmental space. It is really exciting. We're seeing, investors globally starting to steer towards investing in companies that have higher ESG credentials. And certainly, as we know, consumers are certainly demanding that their products not only show that traceability, but show the sustainability elements of, the food products that are coming to the market globally. And so New Zealand has a really exciting position in all of this. And, I think maybe the missing piece of that puzzle was the financial sector getting on board and also being, a conduit to verifying that there's some farmers in New Zealand that are doing some amazing work. And so we're really excited that we could launch this pilot and see how it lands, because we think there's a massive opportunity for more of this type of lending in the sector.
Yeah, it's interesting because, there is starting to be some supply programs which are incentivised based on accreditation of the work going on farm, but they don't seem to be big enough to finance the huge amount of capital that needs to go into effectively increase, as you describe it, the natural capital on our New Zealand farms, and in terms of which way round. So therefore, to support it with a loan to get to that point is a positive.
Yeah, well, we think so. And we're seeing a lot in our institutional space. We've employed a head of sustainable finance at the bank to sort of lead this initiative across all of the sectors. And I really focus on, from an agri point of view, what the opportunity is there to also, be supporting that sustainable finance initiative and moving that forward. And it's really exciting as well because it's the carrot, not the stick, for our farmers, and which is certainly something that I know a lot of farmers that I talk to are very excited about that potential. And it's around, putting in place some really measurable, ambitious targets on those farms that a lot of our farmers are striving towards anyway, and sort of saying to them, look, if you can achieve these targets, the bank recognises that and you'll receive, a favourable cost of lending.
Absolutely. So when it comes down to the measurement of this. You have paired up with Assure Quality. Could you talk us through around the measurability and the targets and how they will actually be achieved?
Yeah, so this is probably something that it took us quite a long time to get our heads around. Certainly across the sector, a key issue is around that data piece. So how are we verifying the hard work that's going on farm, and how are we reporting that through? And so working with Assure Quality on this pilot has been really brilliant because it gives us that level of independence. It also, adds to the integrity of a product like this, where we're saying there is an independent verifier that's going out annually and assessing whether the farmer is meeting those standards that we've pre-agreed with them or not. And it also gives, a heightened level of reporting to that farmer as well, that they can carry through into other areas of their business, into other areas of their certification schemes and things that they're a part of. So Assure Quality will go out each year, and they'll assess those pre-agreed targets around improvements in water quality, improvements in total greenhouse gas emissions on farm, and also those improvements in plant biodiversity. And they'll use a range of metrics from an audit perspective to ensure that the bank is receiving an independent report stating whether those are passed or failed, and then the flow-on effect of that is the incentive or premium that's charged to the cost of lending.
It's absolutely fantastic. Congratulations on how far you've come with this, because I can only imagine that there's so much involved to get it to that point. One thing I really would love to use this opportunity while we've got you on the show, Dana, is around your background working in our markets to promote New Zealand product, and your work in value chain, and also around how integrated systems can actually eventually see this premium that everyone's so talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, this is really interesting, right? So it's probably been 5, maybe 6 years since I was up in markets like China and Russia, things like that. And certainly the space has come a long way since then. We were certainly talking a lot about traceability back then, but I think we've evolved very much to traceability plus environmental, social and governance, and we need to see those credentials flowing through in the food that we produce. And there's a lot of technology and things that have come a long way since then. You're also starting to see, key players in the market really starting to drive that sustainability credential space, and I think that's really, really exciting. But you're exactly right that the premium passed on to the customer is the next step in this, and so it's just about bringing all of the different counterparties in this conversation, of which we think the bank is a really key player, into the conversation, and lining up all those different elements of the puzzle so that when we do hit the market, we can without a doubt verify the work that we're doing on farm.
And I also would love to delve in a little bit more into the term natural capital, because as we're seeing in dairy farms, that A+ dairy farms are really hitting some amazing price per hectare numbers at the moment. The equity can be quickly eroded in your partnership with farmers if these things aren't actually done in terms of the value of the property. So natural capital is actually now a very bankable term.
Yeah, it really is, and certainly when we launched Natural Capital, it was about, hey, what's the bank's position in this? We're seeing that our farmers, at the forefront of what's keeping them up at night is environmental regulation. So we're a trusted advisor to our farmers, and we want to make sure that when we're sitting at the table having a conversation, we're having conversations that are informed and on the right topics. So when we launched this, it was very much around how, as a bank, what's our position here, and how do we support our farmers through this journey that they're on? How do we ensure that they know what their numbers are at a minimum level, and can get their heads around what they're required to do at a compliance level? And then over and above that, how are we supporting with the right information, and how are we supporting that conversation around, hey, in 10 years' time, how do you want your land to look? How do you want your land to be able to be used? And starting to think about, from a natural capital perspective, and also a social capital perspective, I think that's really important as well. The community part of this is huge. So how from, if you're making decisions in your farming business that erode that natural capital, what does that do to the long-term viability of that business? And so just starting to think along those sorts of lines And as a bank, I think that's a really nice position for us to play in. We're always looking at risk and we're always thinking, long term. So just being in market, helping our farmers to think like that as well has been really rewarding for us.
Mm. Where would you like this to continue over the next 12 months and what are the plans to be able to roll out a sustainability linked farm loan to other customers?
Yeah, so this is the next big challenge that we're just working through, and I'm very hopeful that this type of lending around, recognising that hard work that our farmers are putting in and really linking in to the work that they're doing, will start to move quite quickly from here. We want to talk. This pilot was done in the dairy sector, but by no means does that mean that it's going to stay just in the dairy sector. It's certainly. We worked with Southern Pastures because they've got some amazing environmental credentials and they tell a really great environmental story. But we know that in the red meat sector, there's some amazing stuff going on in the horticulture sector. There's some amazing stuff going on across the board. So we want to start talking to our farmers around if they think that this type of product is something that they would like to achieve in their business, then we certainly want to have those conversations. We're seeing frameworks starting to emerge across the finance sector that will come in and underpin the movement in the sustainability linked loan space. So we'll be watching that with interest, and that'll really help us to scale as well. So we hope the future is quite prosperous for this type of lending. Yeah.
Fantastic, absolutely. It is the place to move the dial with financial incentive. And I was speaking to a CFO of large corporate holdings last week, and just off the back of this news coming out, Dana, and they're all watching very closely to what's going on because it's doing the right thing and it's financially beneficial at the same time. So well done on all your, what I imagine would have been a lot of hard work in the background. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Head of Natural Capital, Dana Muir there from BNZ.